All right, Sooner Nation, buckle up. Saturday in Norman, not just another SEC showdown. As we've been saying, it's one of those prove-it games. And this time we're going to talk about the defense. Oklahoma's defense is the foundation of what has been this rebuild for Brent Venables. They go toe-to-toe, though, with one of the most dynamic offenses in the conference with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. So on one side, you've got a defense that's been nothing short of dominant through 7 games. Oklahoma's given up just 213 yards per game and under 10 points per contest. That's elite. No matter the league you play in, that is elite. Now, on the other side, you've got Lane Kiffin's offense. It's a machine that's built on tempo, space, explosive plays, averaging almost 500 yards per game, 492, and putting up 37 points. So this is a classic matchup of discipline versus chaos, structure, and speed, right? And it's the kind of game that tells you if Oklahoma's defense is just good or are they truly great. So let's start with numbers because they tell the story of why this matchup is so intriguing. Oklahoma's defense allows just 3.68 yards per play. That's the best mark in the conference. And when you hold teams under 10 points per game, you know you're doing something that very few teams in the country can sustain. And they've done it through 7 games. They're giving up, 118 passing yards per game, forcing opponents to dink and dunk their way downfield. But I think what's most impressive is how this group is built. It's a unit that thrives on gap control, secure tackling, and disciplined reads. So what I mean is that every level of this defense plays their synchronization, which is exactly what you need against an offense like what the Rebels have. Now, Lane Kiffin's group, they're averaging 6.8 yards per play. That's efficiency and explosiveness combined. They want to push the tempo. They want to stretch you vertically. They want to force communication breakdowns. You got a quarterback here who's been sharp, completing over 62% of his passes, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And when Ole Miss gets rolling, it kind of feels like a basketball fast break, It's one of those blink, and they've gone 75 yards in 4 plays. So something's got to give on Saturday. Let's talk about the strengths and the weaknesses on each side of the ball here. Because this is, like I said earlier, this is a chess matchup that I think is going to come down to who makes the better adjustments quicker. So for Oklahoma, the defensive strengths are pretty obvious. It's a team that's fast, they're physical, they're extremely well coached. The front 7 is anchored by players like David Stone, Jaden Jackson, R. Mason Thomas. They've been outstanding at reading keys and eliminating cutback lanes. Now that discipline forces teams to be a little bit predictable in certain situations, and that's where Oklahoma's pressure package really shines. Then you've got a secondary that's been kind of a revelation as well. Venables has built a coverage unit that keeps everything in front of them. So they've limited explosive plays and they force quarterbacks to stay patient, which it's really hard to do with R. Mason Thomas breathing down your neck, And Oklahoma does a great job at disguising pressures. But there are potential weaknesses here. The Sooners have not faced an offense quite like Ole Miss. When you face tempo this fast, even great defenses can fatigue. Communication becomes harder and substitutions are going to be limited. So if the Rebels can get Oklahoma's linebackers on their heels or catch them mid-rotation, that's where cracks in the foundation begin to appear. So if you're Ole Miss, your strength is versatility, right? The Rebels can hit you deep. They can run tempo screens. Their ground game quietly sets everything up. So when they're balanced, they are lethal. But what is their weakness? Well, it's found in consistency. For as explosive as they are, Ole Miss is prone to stalling out if defenses are able to disrupt the rhythm. You've got a 6.8 yards per play average, which is strong, but it's absolutely not untouchable. If they cannot run the ball effectively, you see their whole scheme begin to look a little bit rushed and a little bit forced. And when you play a defense like Oklahoma's, they can make your mistakes compound very, very fast. So how does Oklahoma slow this thing down? Number one, I think the Sooners have to force tempo shifts. Like Ole Miss thrives on rhythm. They want to dictate the pace. So if Oklahoma can slow the game down, if they can put them behind the chains and force the Rebels to huddle or at least hesitate between plays, what they do is they cut the possession count and they take away a little bit of the comfort zone for the Rebels. I think that starts with winning the early downs. You cannot allow Ole Miss to be like 2nd and 2, and you can't give up any easy conversions. The second thing Oklahoma's defense has to do is they've got to neutralize the deep ball. Ole Miss makes its living on chunk plays. And the Sooners need to keep everything in front of them. They need to tackle well. They need to force, 10 to 12 play drives as opposed to 4-play, 70-yard drives. The more plays the Rebels run, the more opportunities there are for them to make mistakes. You got a false start. You give up a sack. You give up a tip pass. That's the type of game plan. That's the kind of hitches that Brent Venables loves. And I think number 3, you've got to disrupt the run-pass balance. The Rebels are dangerous because the run opens up the pass. So Oklahoma's front, especially those defensive tackles, they have to win at the line of scrimmage. If they can limit the ground game to, let's say, 3.5 yards per carry, suddenly the play-action pass loses its bite a little bit. And then the Rebels are looking at 3rd and long situations instead of 2nd and short or 3rd and short. And that's when Brent Venables is able to kind of dial up those exotic pressures and simulated blitzes and all the confusion that he brings to the table. So let's lock in 3 defensive keys for Oklahoma on Saturday. Number 1, win the line of scrimmage. Everything starts up front. If Oklahoma's interior can control the trenches, that what it does is it collapses the entire Ole Miss offensive rhythm. You got to keep the Rebels behind schedule, and you got to keep their tempo, off. And when that happens, that advantage disappears for them. The second thing is you've got to pressure the quarterback in predictable passing downs. This is where the Sooners thrive. This is where Oklahoma makes its bank. But when you put Ole Miss behind the chains, that's when you are able to unleash your chaos. And Venables has been brilliant, not just this season, but across his career. He's been brilliant at disguising blitz looks. Linebackers showing pressure, again, safeties rotating late. And if Oklahoma can get pressure without surrendering gap integrity, the turnovers, the opportunity for turnovers will be there. I think number 3, you got to limit explosive plays. We've talked about this because it's a big one. Oklahoma has been elite at keeping the top on offenses. That needs to continue. What I mean is there's no 60-yard touchdowns, okay? No blown coverages. Every play that the Rebels get has to be something that they earned. Ole Miss, they can live. They can live with 8-play drives, but they die by 3 and outs. That they will fail, right? So keep things in front of you. Tackle clean and force field goals when Ole Miss gets into the red zone instead of giving up touchdowns. I mean, here's the truth. We've talked about it, and we're going to keep hammering it home because I've used that word identity so often. So in this episode, this game is going to test Oklahoma's defense in every way imaginable, because it's not just about stopping a talented offense. It's about handling pace. It's about communication. It's about thriving under pressure when the lights are the brightest. And if Oklahoma's defense holds Ole Miss to under 28 points, I think they win this game in every way. I mean, period. If you limit the Rebels to 28 or fewer points, advantage you, and you're going to win. But here's that word, okay? This matchup is the ultimate identity check. Brent Venables has built this team to thrive in the SEC. And this Saturday is really the first true measuring stick to see how far that progress has come. We know they've made progress. I mean, they're already at 6 wins on the season. They've got 2 conference wins under their belt. We didn't see those things until game 11 last year. So when you're watching this game, keep an eye on the first quarter, because that's going to tell the story of where Oklahoma is. How quickly do the Sooners get off the field on defense? How do they handle the first tempo drive from Ole Miss? And when Ole Miss hits a big play, because they're going to, does the defense bend or do they break? Because I think if Oklahoma executes their plan, they're not just going to beat Ole Miss, that they're going to prove to the rest of the country that this defense is for real. A lot of people want to still identify Oklahoma with the old Big 12 standards, but you win, and you win soundly over Ole Miss on Saturday, now you get caught up in communication and storylines about the SEC standard, and obviously that's where you want to be.